I'm glad to hear that you're outgoing program chairman. Because if this tanks, you're out anyway. I do want to thank Rose and Donna Camp for this invitation here tonight. You know, I learned, can y'all hear me everywhere? I learned that you have to be really careful when you're casually talking about your job, because somebody might think it would be a great topic for our League of Women Voters. So here I am. But the truth is, I am always up for a trip to Mobile. I live in Birmingham. And a chance to visit with my sweet brother, Tom. Tom is actually a real journalist. I just play one from time to time, and I get to do cool things like this. Now, tonight, and Rose asked me if I needed any AV equipment, and I said no. I don't like doing PowerPoints when you're talking about words, because it's like school, way too much. But if I did have a PowerPoint tonight, this would be the time that I show you my precious Bella. She is almost 5 and weighs 10 pounds, and she's a little silver Yorkie. She loves to come visit her Uncle Tom and chase squirrels in the square, but sadly she had to stay at home with her sitter, Karen. But don't feel sorry for Bella. She was rotten when I left her. She will be more rotten when I get home. And we love Karen. But I'm here tonight to talk about another passion of mine, and that is sunshine. It was a beautiful day today, wasn't it? But the sunshine I'm talking about is the fundamental right of every citizen to access state, county, local government meetings and records. And it's really important for us to understand that every penny spent by our government is our money. And it's also very important that we remind our elected officials of this from time to time. I happen to believe, because my father was an elected official most of my life, either as mayor or as a school board member, that the intention of every public official is to do the right thing. And I do believe that. But there are times that they have to be reminded of that, or an array of reasons. Tom reminded me last month that during Sunshine Week about how we learned early on in our house about the power of sunshine and its ability to be such a powerful disinfectant. We grew up 100 miles north of here in Pine Hill, Alabama, where our clothes were hung on clothesline. Pillows were sunned on a regular basis, and at least once a year the mattresses were hauled out into the yard and disinfected by the sun. At our house, every week was sunshine. And that's how it should be with our government. Every week, every day should be a transparent sunshine day in our government. In that casual conversation that we had several months ago with Suzanne and Joe and Donna, I made a comment that my organization, the Alabama Press Association, is really the only entity or organization that walks the halls of the State House in Montgomery and regularly advocates for open government and open records in our state. And while that's true day to day, your organization has been very involved in my organization over the years in some very important legislation. In 2005, your group worked with my group in the halls of the state legislature to pass a revised Open Meeting Act. And that has been, actually been revised again since then. But that's important work. And you represent individuals. I represent a media organization, and sometimes you know that we aren't welcomed with open arms all the time. But your group is important because you represent citizens, just normal citizens who either want a record or want access to a meeting. And here's the thing about that the laws that govern our access to government are not media laws. A lot of people think they are. They're laws for everybody, And a reporter or any kind of news media has no more access to any record or meeting than you do. But here's the thing, until you are denied, we deal with it all the time. But from the standpoint of the average citizens, until you are denied access to a record or to a meeting, you take it for granted. You don't really understand how important it is. When you're denied that, then it becomes a major issue in whatever you're doing, whether it's business or personal. Alabama has one of the oldest open records laws in the country. It was passed in 1950. And it could not be more simple. It basically says, talking about records now, unless it's closed by a statute or a court ruling or attorney general opinion, then it's open. I mean, how much easier can you get? How much more simple can that be? And over the years, there have been multiple, 75, maybe even higher, instances where records have been deemed closed. In other states, open records laws list detailed documents that are open or closed. Ours doesn't do that. There's no place in Alabama where you can go and find a list of every record that's closed. Now, this vagueness in our law has been good and bad. The good part is it's so vague that if you litigate an open records issue, unless a court can go point to a statute or a attorney general's opinion or some sort of court ruling, they're going to rule that it's open. But the problem there is you got to have money to go to court. I always point to our law as being positive on the vagueness side, because look at Pennsylvania, whose law is just the opposite. Pennsylvania's open records law says that unless it's specifically open, then it's closed. So historically, in Alabama, the courts have ruled in favor of openness, and that is a good thing. But we're coming to a time now where groups in our state, yours I hope, and certainly mine, believe that it's time to address this weakness. It's time to correct it. And that sounds so cut and dry and so easy. And the truth is, it's not. Where we need to be in Alabama and everywhere is that a records request and fulfillment should be a basic and ordinary transaction between government and the public, period. It shouldn't be pulling, suing, writing letters. It shouldn't be that. This brings me to Senate Bill 237 by Senator Cam Ward. Rose, I told you if a bill was introduced before I came here that I would send it to you, and I didn't. And the reason I didn't is because I wanted to talk about it before you read it. And I'll explain that too. We are expecting, since we're in Mobile, we are expecting a House version that will be introduced by Representative Chris Kringle. And I'm not sure when that will come, but what we did was we have what's called a Sunlight Coalition, and it's a group of a lot of different associations, Alabama Press Association, Alabama Broadcasters Association, and we gave the Senate, the sponsors, a draft that we wrote. So what does that tell you? It's got everything in it that we like. So here's one thing, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit in a minute. If you put a piece of legislation out there and you're 100% happy with it, it's got everything you want, everything's great. The other side is getting shafted. And that's the truth. So as we move forward, and the Senate Bill 237 is available on the Alabama Legislative website. You're welcome to go read it. What I want to tell you about tonight is the intent of that bill, and when you're looking at the iterations of this that will happen over the next few months and maybe even years, these are the things to look for. Number one is an oversight process. So if you are denied a record, you have somewhere other than court to go to get it. And in our bill, it is a public access counselor in the Office of Department of Public Accounts. It's like an ombudsman. It's like somewhere you can go and say, you know, the county is not giving me this record or some minutes or whatever it is. Then you have an avenue to go to that's not going to cost you money to get a ruling on it. And ruling is a loosely used term there. The next thing is a timeline. Right now, remember what I said about our law? It didn't say anything about anything other than unless it's closed, it's open. That's it. So we're looking for a timeline, and we have put in 5 days. If you go to a county or a city or state government and ask for a record, they have 5 days to respond. Now the response may be no, and it may be I need more time, but at least in 5 days you're going to get some sort of response. I've been doing this long enough to know that the Association of County Commissions head blew off when they read that. 5 days? Oh my gosh, little Miss Mildred down there in Chatham, she doesn't have, she's by herself. If somebody comes in and asks for a big record, she can't turn that around in 5 days. So I suspect that 5 days will be expanded. But the point is, there is a timeline. There is a time frame where they have to have some response. The third thing is to define the charges. There is an Attorney General's opinion that says a government entity can charge a reasonable amount. Yet reasonable is not defined. So reasonable to Jefferson County could be $25 a page, and in Wilcox County it could be 10 cents a page. So we have started out with a 10 cents a page, and then there's some other, you know, it's color or whatever. But also in this version it says if you just want to view that document or take your telephone and take a picture of it, there should be no charge. As I'll say this again, remember, all of these documents are your documents. They're yours. And then finally is the enforcement. If the bill, this bill outlines a procedure for if your answer is no, then you have somewhere to go. And there's an appeals process. And that's kind of a complicated part of that. It is, if you're dealing with lawyers, it's important. What the bill does not do is list the exceptions. Remember I said there's upwards of 50, maybe even 75. If you go through all of the code and all the Attorney General's opinions and court cases, we're trying to stay away from that. And here's why. If we start listing, the line will go right out to Government Street with government bodies lining up saying, we can't have this, can't be an open meeting, we've got to get that, an open record. We've got to get that in there. Before the bill was even introduced, and there was rumblings about this was coming. People were coming up saying, now, we've got to list these exceptions. We're going to try very hard not to do that. But here's the bottom line. As I said earlier, this bill is crafted by my organization and like-minded people. And because of that, we know there are going to be changes. And another thing that I've learned being a lobbyist, and I said this earlier, if I'm 100% happy, somebody's not getting treated fairly. And so we're going to have to go through here line by line and topic by topic and figure out the things that make it fair. It may be a burden on Little Miss County Clerk Mildred to produce a record in 5 days if she's only one in office. And we have to be reasonable. We have to be reasonable as media representatives, and we have to be reasonable as public, as citizens. Getting a comprehensive legislation passed through any legislature in Alabama or any state is a process, and you have to compromise. I wish we had some state representatives here today that could back me up on that. But they will tell you when a piece of comprehensive legislation is introduced, it's going to get numerous changes, amendments, substitutes, and you can't be afraid of that. So if you go and look at Senate Bill 237, take that with a grain of salt. I can guarantee you that's not the bill that's going to pass. But I can also guarantee you that the 4 things I talked about are deal breakers for my group. Excuse me, somebody over there is making me call. Getting some sort of enforcement, getting some kind of process to go to when you're denied, having a timetable and having a limit on what can be charged. Those are not things that we're willing to compromise on. Now, within that topic, certainly there can be compromise. But any bill is going to have those 4 elements for our protection and for your protection. I will tell you a funny story, and I'm done. I think my time's up. But when I first started lobbying by myself in Montgomery without my boss, there was a NASCAR accident in Orlando, and Dale Earnhardt was killed. And so all over the country, they started introducing these bills that would shut down autopsy photographs. Because what happened was some of these internet sites were posting the autopsy photos of Dale Earnhardt. It was terrible. It was just terrible. And his family sued, I can't even remember the name of the website, but the Orlando Sentinel got involved in that. Gary, you probably remember that. And so here comes the bill to Alabama. And so I start going around. The sponsor was a guy from Talladega, and he and I are now very good friends, but I did not know him well at the time. I was new. And so he was like, Felicia, you can't tell me you think it's a good idea for a family to be subjected to seeing their loved ones' autopsy photographs all over an internet website. And I was like, well, newspapers wouldn't do that. Well, you can't carve out an exception for just the newspapers. And I'm like, well, all right, what am I going to do now? How am I going to fight this? So I decided I would go see the Department of Forensic Science in Montgomery, just see if we could work with him on some language, some compromise. So I assume most people have never been out there. It's at the AUM campus, and you can see it from the interstate when you're going up 85 towards Atlanta out of Montgomery. But you get off the interstate, you kind of go through the AUM campus, and you go way to the end of this little road, and it's just this building by itself. And I drove up there, and I had an appointment, and there aren't any cars out there. I'm like, I have to Alabama Department of Forensic Science. Go in, don't see anybody, they don't have a receptionist, and they've got a buzzer, I buzzed. So here comes, and I don't remember his name, but he was the director of the Department of Forensic Science. And I walked back and sat down in his office, and I realized he and I are the only two living people in this building. It was full of people, but they were all dead. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap it up here now. But this is how powerful open records are. The people who came to our defense on that bill was the Black Caucus. And John Rogers, Representative John Rogers from Jefferson County, got up on the floor of the legislature and said the 16th Street bombing question would never have been solved had we not had access to those autopsy reports. That was it. He did my job for me. I wish he'd done that before I had to go out to the Alabama Department. But records are important, and they really, and your access to it, please don't take that for granted. It is an important right, just like your right to vote is your right to have access to government. I'm so happy I've got to come here and see my brother and meet new friends and see old friends. I'm happy to answer any questions, or I'm happy to go sit down and have a glass of wine. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to re-emphasize one of the portions of the bill we were discussing. I just received an invoice for $41,000 for information I had requested. And, I just think that exactly what you were saying, it's so out of hand that that's actually being used in order to block people from getting information.
Right. I mean, that is absolutely a weapon. If government entities don't want to release a record, they'll just charge for it. And, reasonably. Anyone else? Okay.
You were talking about administrative pushback from the county commission saying they didn't have the staff. Do you get that kind of pushback from departments and people that more substantively don't want you to see the information?
Not really. I mean, there is some of that, but now
Didn't hear the question.
she's asking about the pushback from. I mentioned about the county commission where they don't have the staff to produce records. She was asking if you got that from larger agencies that do have the staff and just don't want to do it. And I say no, not really. But here's what, and I would do this if I were against the bill. You take the lowest common denominator, and that's where you build your argument. So if you had an example where somebody out of spite comes in and asks for meetings for the last 25 years of a county commission, then that's the example that they're going to use, saying, that's just out of hand, that's unreasonable. So I get that, but we have to argue that on the other side, that if there's a reason, then we've got to do that. So the pushback is more about the logistics of it. And as I said, there are some entities that absolutely want everything listed, and we're really trying not to do that, because that list is going to get really, really long. So, anyone else?
I don't have questions. I just wanted to thank you for coming to talk to us and to make sure that everybody in the room knows that your state League of Women Voters is supporting that bill, and I'm going to start counting on you to let me know when you need to send people to the committee.
I sure will. I sure will. And that, as I said again, that was so crucial to us with an open meetings law, because it can't be just about the media, because sometimes we're not the most popular people in the room. It's got to be you. It's got to be you. Thank you so much.